Today we'll be continuing our discussion of the good life through the teachings of Aristotle, with more of a focus on fulfilling our human function. Come along with us to reflect on the good life on From What We Gathered with Danny Nelson and Kylie Shahar.
In the land of teeter totters, I prefer a slide. Turbulent or gentle waters, let's go for a ride.
Hi, Danny.
Hi, Kylie.
Okay, so for today's opening scenario, I'm just going to ask you a very direct question. It's not really a scenario. It's just a question.
Okay, let's have it.
What I want to know is, have you ever been in a situation or done something, some kind of activity or, anything that you did with excellence?
So at a very early age, kindergarten report card.
Nice.
Just excellent. Like so many lines, excellent. There was one needs improvement.
What was that one?
Talking too much.
I was,
It was a low ball. You hit it. You tossed it to me.
And yeah,
I got it. No, I think that in all honesty, like I do think that I run a small business, and I do think that there is a certain amount of excellence that I do that with, and I can say that pretty positively. One, because of outside feedback.
Yeah.
Like we have really great reviews in general. I say we because me and my business partner, the hubby.
Also your life partner.
My life partner.
All the partners.
All the partners. We get a lot of good reviews and that sort of thing. But the other part of it is there's a certain level of confidence that I have about it because so many things in my life trained me for this. Like the level of work ethic that's needed, the nuances of being a hostess,
right.
the willingness to do what we call surprise and delight, which is this like willingness to go above and beyond what we offered to try and I feel confident that there's a certain level of excellence again because feedback and my own just feeling toward am I doing this right?
Yeah.
I feel a correctness kind of in the way that we do it. So what about you? Have you ever had excellence?
So I like to lift weights in the gym. Well, I guess like is a complicated thing, right? It's like I like to do it, but I also really strive to do it better each time. Like whether, right, each time I go in, I'm adding more weight or doing more repetitions as a challenge to myself. And I take myself to like sometimes you go in with like more mental clarity or like less mental clarity, or sometimes you go even though it's just the gym, like I feel like it's very much a mental activity too, because I get so self-competitive that like I know it's like leg day and it's a very intense day in the gym and I get anxiety and my stomach hurts and it's like I have to remind myself like this isn't I'm not going into a competition, like it's just for me. And so I feel like some days I get overcome with like anxiety about performing well, but other times I don't experience that and I feel like I'm really like honed in and like laser focused and I just have like a really great session in the gym, and I feel like those times I feel like are marked by a kind of excellence just in terms of, my ability to, leave things aside. It's not like anybody's grading me. I can't fail the gym, Yeah.
It's still when we talk about excellence, you have something you put time, effort, and stuff into that even if I walk in with all the confidence in the world because of my being, it doesn't mean I'm going to be functionally as good as you or even in the same ballpark.
Thank you for you're such a good friend. Thank you for reminding me of these things, and also for like so nicely connecting this up with what we're gonna really dive into with Aristotle and thinking about this idea of a thing's function and thinking about what it means to do something excellently given the thing's function. So we'll come back to this for sure.
Yeah.
But of course, as is customary, before we dive into our topics for today, Danny, what's the hot goss on Aristotle?
So what's unfair is we've already talked about Aristotle
Yes.
and his hot gossness. We've now renamed him the hot uncle.
Yeah, Uncle Airy.
Uncle Airy. One of the things that I love that we haven't talked about before is apparently Plato had a little pet name for Aristotle, which he called him the mind.
That is so epic. That is so incredible.
To have Plato,
Yeah.
like one of the most brilliant people ever in existence, to be like, here comes the mind.
Yeah, incredible.
And he loved Plato. It wasn't like he left because he didn't stay at the academy. So the academy is the school that Plato started, and eventually Aristotle starts the Lyceum. And it wasn't like he left the academy because he was like, screw you, Plato. Like, I've grown up with my own ideas and I'm going out in the world.
Yeah.
Plato passed away and he was not picked to be the new head of the... They decided to go with, I think it was Plato's nephew. Like, so it was there was this sort of like relationary thing, which Aristotle also didn't like because he's like, oh, just because you're Nepo babies.
Nepo babies.
These aren't Nepo baby times.
Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah.
We're trying to change the world.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I really loved is just like, oh, we got to think about the mind. But the other reason we're like hot uncle, one of the other things I love about Aristotle, and when we talk about like excellence in general, and we'll talk about him, there's a certain amount of predisposition or things that you need for excellence. And he'll talk about in his writings how even being beautiful, if you're born beautiful, you're already ahead. You already, like, even 2,000 years ago, there's still like beauty is held to this. So apparently the word on the street is that he was super hot. Like he was a sexy dude, like tall,
rippling abs,
wide shouldered, like really good at all of the gymnasium things.
Amazing.
He was like a very flashy dresser.
Ooh.
Like
these NFL players.
Ooh, yeah.
Right?
I hope like Cam Newton. He's like, what's the biggest, most colorful hat?
Fuzzy purple.
I love anyone who they're like, now are they talking about sports?
Yeah.
No, we're talking about fashion.
Only sports indirectly.
Indirectly.
But maybe sports eventually.
But look up Cam Newton and see how handsome he is.
Yeah.
Because he is very handsome. Yes. So, I mean, I think that covers the hot goss.
Yeah.
For now.
For now.
But we'll bring it back in.
There's always more.
You know, and also, like, again, if you want to send me photos of people you think live up to this Aristotelian ideal of manhood,
we welcome.
I will gaze upon them.
Gaze upon them. Yes.
So we're not just talking about how hot Aristotle is.
No, we're not. We're talking about the good life. Maybe it sounds like Aristotle thinks. No, he probably doesn't think you got to be hot for that, but he certainly thinks that
he does think that at a minimum to be virtuous, you have to kind of be born with a certain amount.
Yeah.
I bet he thinks if you're a hideous person,
Socrates,
you are probably going to have a harder time.
Yeah, it'll be more difficult. But so like, if we're thinking about this question of the good life, right? Aristotle basically thinks that a good life requires a necessary ingredient of a good life is virtue. But he also thinks that virtue is not by itself sufficient for a good life, right? So he thinks a necessary ingredient is virtue, but virtue by itself is not going to get you right to this idea of flourishing. And this is like a departure from
the rest of all of the Hellenistic, not all of them, but the ones we're going to talk about.
Right? Who think, right? Some think, virtue alone is sufficient for flourishing, for living a good life. But Aristotle seems to think that there's some other things that are required, and we'll get to talking about some of those. But if we want to address, right, the question of the good life for Aristotle, like what is the good life, right? We have to address like first the question of like, what is the good? Like what is good full stop? And we've alluded to this and we've sort of talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but for Aristotle, like the good is not happiness or pleasure as we sort of ordinarily understand it. Like the good is not just like feeling happy or feeling joyful or like experiencing pleasure
or having everything you want.
Or having everything you want. Exactly. So like you can think about like really, really, really rich people who seem like really, 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 they seem really, really, really happy. Like
from their publicists.
Takes a lot of PR, right? Like Aristotle's going to say, okay, fine. You can show me all that you have all this material possessions, but that's not in itself like a good life. But rather he thinks the good, like the highest good, or what is sometimes referred to as the chief good, like the thing toward which all good things are trying to get at, is eudaimonia, right?
Absolutely.
Which is like, if you break that ancient Greek word down into its composite parts, the prefix means like well or good, and like daimon or daimonia has to do with your spirit. So taken together, like it's literally translated as the good spirit. But what we can think about what that means, like you can translate that to the English word flourishing. So like that's, the good, like capital G good. That's the thing that's good for its own sake, not like good for whatever else it can get you. Right. Like money is good because it can get you other things that you want.
Right. But it's not everything, as proven.
Yeah.
Through the ages of miserable rich people.
Exactly.
Like it can be good.
Yeah.
Depending on how you use it.
Yeah. And like what it is that you ultimately desire. Like if you ultimately desire, I don't know, like gambling and like indulging in like alcohol and all these things that you might think like bring me pleasure or bring me happiness, like those things you might think are like fleeting or temporary, but they're certainly not like good in and of itself. But what is good in and of itself is flourishing, right? Like,
right.
Well-being. So it's like, that's why we do all kinds of things that we do. Like you can do this chain of reasoning. Ask students in a classroom, like, why are you here in college? They're like, to get a degree. Well, why do you want the college degree? Well, to get a good job. Well, why do you want a good job? To get some money. Why do you want money? Well, to go on vacation. Why do you want to go on vacation? And then the buck stops somewhere. It's like, because I want to like live a good, I want to be well, I want to like, some things we pursue for the sake of it's bringing pleasure, some things we pursue that don't bring us pleasure, but you think tends toward your overall flourishing. Like my lifting weights in the gym maybe is a kind of pleasure, but also I have to tell you, like, it's not
a daily pleasure.
It's not. Yeah. I wouldn't call it like pleasure. I would call it like something that I just think is good for me. Like it helps me be well, know, in more ways than one.
And to be in a state of preparedness for times when you need like courage. Like there's a way as far as your muscles are a tool that you need to hone.
Oh yeah. Cause I got to do stuff.
You gotta punch people in the face.
Only if they're being really unjust.
Exactly. These unjust people need a punch in the face.
But so the good life is a life of flourishing, right? And Aristotle says, as we said at the outset, that a good life requires virtue. So flourishing, like well-being, requires virtue. And then we should ask ourselves, like, what is virtue, right? If flourishing or eudaimonia is a life of virtuous activity, and actually activity is an important part there too, like not inactivity or like vegetating, or like think about, just like laying on the couch all day, crack open a 6-pack, watching football. Oops, guilty.
Or you're like, that's just resting. Yeah. She just described like a nice restful day.
But if you do that all the time, if that's all you do and you're like, this is a good life, Aristotle would say, well, there's no kind of like,
you're not participating in society.
Yeah, there's like a lack of a certain kind of virtuous activity there. And like to get clarity on what he means by virtue, if virtue is essential, it's not totally sufficient, but it's a necessary ingredient for flourishing. One way we might sort of narrowly think about virtue, which Aristotle doesn't think is all that virtue is like, this idea of like moral virtue, or this idea of like, doing the moral thing.
Right.
And we could think of examples like, I don't know, like helping your old neighbor.
You do love to bring in a senior citizen. Only senior citizens deserve extra help.
and actions which help them deserve the notion of the description of virtue. No, but like,
being a family member has an emergency.
Yeah. Right.
And you go to take them to the hospital,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, I'll come watch your kids, so you can go do that.
Yeah, you might think like those are the only kinds of things that count as virtuous, but this is not really what Aristotle doesn't think virtue is just like doing the quote unquote morally right thing.
Yeah, you're not the hero. It's not always about being a hero.
Yeah,
that's not what virtue is connected to.
Right.
Although it could sometimes.
It could. Yeah, it could, but that's not the full exactly. But that's not the full thing of it. It's like, so it's not just moral virtue, but rather, because the word that gets, we translate the ancient Greek word arete often to the English word virtue, but it could also just as well be translated to the English word excellence. And so when we're thinking about virtue for Aristotle, we're thinking about excellence.
Yep.
Excellence in general. Which is why we started to reflect on the idea of doing
Earlier,
things excellent, with excellence.
And he does. I mean, and this is the cool thing about his idea of excellence.
Yeah.
So, like, we introduced you guys to the cardinal virtues.
Yeah.
Wisdom, temperance, courage, justice.
Yeah.
The thing that's crazy about him, he's like, okay, there are those virtues, but also there's infinite things to apply virtue and that are the sphere of virtue.
Yeah.
So it's not just those four things, although he still sees those as like the highest.
Right.
But he's like, like there is excellences to be had in how you spend your money.
Yeah.
There's excellence to be had in how you interact in business.
Yeah.
There's excellences to be like, it just is.
Yeah.
It applies to every little. There's an excellent way to bathe.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure for Aristotle, he's like,
exactly.
Is it head, shoulders, knees, and toes? Is it all up the left, down the right? I don't know.
Maybe for the lymphatic system.
Ooh,
I don't know.
Applied philosophy this week. Yeah. Tell us the best way to shower. Shower in 5 different ways,
and tell us which is the best for science.
For science,
we're doing research.
Which
here.
one's not even the best? The most excellent.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. But I mean, just to like, right. So like, exactly. Like it's not just moral ideas of, it's not virtue in the moral sense. And it's not for Aristotle, just these 4 cardinal virtues, but it's like in any situation, in any circumstance, there are opportunities to respond appropriately to the situation, which is a kind of excellence. And we'll sort of flesh this out a bit further by thinking about, right, like, so like if it's the case that for human beings, flourishing or eudaimonia is a life of virtuous activity, you can just restate that by saying it's a life of excellent human activity.
Yep.
And then if we're thinking about like, well, what does that mean? Like, what is excellent human activity? We can think about what, some scholars in the secondary literature call the function argument. So Aristotle doesn't use that term.
You're not going to take the fun out of function, are you? Through this philosophical discussion.
Oh, I might. Well, not if I do it excellently.
Oh, nice.
But like the basic idea of this, like idea of a function argument is to say, to think about what it looks like to be an excellent thing. Okay, so like to be an excellent human being, or to be an excellent horse, or to be an excellent knife, and any kind. Yeah. To think about what it is to be an excellent thing we have to know what the function is of that thing. So like a paradigm example is like a knife, right? To understand like what it is for a knife to be a good knife or an excellent knife is to ask, well, what is the function of a knife? It's to cut. It's to cut things. And so to be a good knife, or for like a knife to be like an excellent knife, right, is for it to be an excellent knife is to cut well. So it has to be sharp, right? So you can sort of run this kind of test or idea for like any kind of thing, animate, inanimate, whatever. Like an oak tree, you might ask, like, what is it to be a good oak tree? What is it thus to be an excellent oak tree? And you might think like, well, what is the function of an oak tree? Well, maybe one way of cashing it out is to provide shade. Like a good oak tree provides shade. And so like an excellent oak tree will be like big and tall and have really bushy leaves and spread out really wide.
Ooh, the live oak.
The live oak.
Southern oaks are the best.
I know.
If you're ever wondering why you might want to travel in the South, there's some such beautiful trees.
Trees and flowers. The cahaba lily.
Ooh, girl.
Just look that one up.
Only in Alabama.
Exactly. And so like, yeah, so for any kind of thing, for an alpaca, right? Like,
yeah,
you can ask like, what is it to be like an excellent alpaca? Well, what is the function of an alpaca? You know, not to reduce it to carrying things, but to carry, you know, like it seems like that's the function of an alpaca. If you're in the Andes,
if you're in the Andes, or you're someone who's likes pack
doing
animals.
trail work,
yeah, doing trails,
you've got to carry a chainsaw and you've got to carry all kinds of stuff. Your alpaca's function, right, or the function of an alpaca is to carry stuff. And so an excellent alpaca will be like strong and responsive and follow you and like keep
have
walking
a sturdy back.
Have a sturdy back. Exactly.
Not be scared easily.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever. Yeah, be able to see. I mean, if it's blind, it probably can't walk the trail.
Yeah,
I don't know. And in the same way, you know, that's an animate object. You know, we're talking about animals. So another inanimate object kind of related to the knife. The same thing with like garden tools, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just that the tool itself is excellent, but it only needs to be excellent at its function.
Yes, exactly.
So you might have a pair of garden shears that are sharp, they're sturdy, they're well made, but you go to cut a branch that is too thick for those shears. Just because the branch is too thick doesn't mean these are now bad shears.
Right.
That's their function is not to cut through a thick branch.
Yeah.
Their function is to cut through flower stems or whatever.
Yeah.
You need to go get the loppers.
Yes.
And lopper is a fun word to say.
I never heard of that one.
You've never heard of a lopper?
No.
Girl, you've
Just
seen plenty
Cindy.
of them.
Not Cindy.
That was an excellent joke. Comedic excellence is what we're looking for in this podcast. So there's lots of different ways. So this is the same way you could think about human beings.
Yes.
Not the standard of excellence
Yeah.
is not to be applied to everyone. Now, if you are looking for what some philosophers refer to as like the sage, a person who might personify the best and the excellence of humanity. There's a lot of times where they use this kind of idea of perfection. So we're not talking about that guy.
Yeah.
Because for all these Hellenistic dudes, it would be a dude.
Right.
Even though women can make people.
Right. No big deal.
I mean, they do need men, but like they're not, you know.
Right.
If you guys need a physiology, like we can.
next series.
Next series. With all the science we've gathered through this that we're asking you guys to do. But excellence within humans, again, it's about when you're assessing function.
Yeah.
Like if my function is to be the executive assistant and not the executive, there's a different standard of excellence at those jobs.
Right. And like I like the contrast too by saying like when we're thinking about excellence in the case of human beings, and then we can think about excellent activity just after, but like excellence is not like perfection. Like, it's not like, oh, you know, it's reserved for a small few individuals who have some kind of tapped into some kind of, you know, transcendent knowledge that like other people don't have access to. Like, you know, it's not like that kind of
I'm like,
notion of
what
excellence.
secret club I'm going to do?
I want in. But it's like, human, like when we're thinking about the function of a human being in the same way that we've just been thinking about like the function of a knife or an oak tree or an alpaca, like you have to think, what we're thinking about, what Aristotle's thinking about is like, what is sort of unique or essential about human beings that perhaps distinguish us from the rest of the other natural kinds. And like Aristotle says, it's reason or rationality. Like we are animals, but we're rational animals. And like, you know, we love our cats and our dogs and our alpacas if we have them. But like, and you know, as loving and animate as they are, and, you know, seemingly they think in various ways, maybe some to a more or less interesting degree.
Have you ever met a Chihuahua? Do they think?
They don't think. No offense to my Chihuahua lovers out there.
Dylan.
But you know, those critters are not rational in any sense of the way that human beings are rational. So like what's, you know, essential to the kind of thing, to the function of us, of, you know, us as these kinds of critters is reason, is rationality. And like one way of kind of cashing that out, it's like, what does it mean to be rational? Like one way of thinking about that is, you know, take again the contrast between me and my cat when I go get, you know, when it's like roughly dinner time for me and for my cats, and I go near the closet where I keep their cans of food, and I just merely pick it up and they start to hear me sort of clamoring with it. The cats they're dashing over and they're like trying to jump up on the counters, and they're just so excited, right? They're sort of just driven, like they hear the sound, they're activated, their instinct drives them, like, go get the food.
They're like, my slave is finally in action.
Yeah. Final, they're literally is what they're saying. It's about time. I'm like, you guys don't know anything about time, but okay. But like, contrast that with me, you know, I can ask a whole host of questions and deliberate about what it is that I do before I can like withhold acting. Like I don't act or you know, I don't do things just on the basis of like instinct or something like that. You know, I can stand back from my action and deliberate, right? And say like, should I eat now? Maybe I should wait for 30 more minutes. Maybe I should eat this instead of that, right?
Yeah. Even though I want pizza.
Yeah.
I already had pizza.
And I've got all these vegetables in the fridge that are going to rot if I don't eat them right now. So it's like...
That's never happened to me. I
don't
know
no, I don't know.
I'm very prompt on eating my vegetables.
Always. Priority. So it's like... What it means to be an excellent human being is to exercise reason appropriately so that you like respond appropriately to your situation. And it's not just like a quote unquote moral situation, but any kind of situation. And so like as rational creatures, we're capable of developing like practical wisdom,
right?
Which helps guide us in whatever situation we're in so that we can kind of ascertain what the virtuous thing would be to do with what it is to respond in that situation, you know, with excellence or in the most appropriate way. In other words, with virtue. So it's like, you know, you can imagine, you know, being a good friend and wanting to help your friend when they're having a tough time, like say it's like some kind of crazy breakup or whatever it is, right? And your friend is totally out of sorts and just like losing her mind and just like, crying and in a dark, dusty pit of desperation. And you can call on your, this is really sad. But like, maybe it's not. And maybe you think your friend is reacting in a way that she shouldn't, because
that wasn't a good person.
It wasn't a good person, and she's better off, and she realizes it, but she's in this state. And so practical wisdom would dictate that what it would be to like sort of respond appropriately, to sort of respond virtuously in that situation, would not be to just like let her bulk in her sadness and kind of, egg it on and say, I'm so sorry. Like, this is so terrible. What has come over, but rather to show her tough love and say, you know what, enough.
Good riddance.
Good riddance. Get up. Go to the shower.
To bad rubbish, I think is a saying.
Good riddance to bad rubbish.
Yeah.
And then you say, like, you know that it's appropriate in that situation. Practical wisdom dictates you got to exercise tough love, and you do. And that's the virtuous, thing to do. That's what it is to respond appropriately to that situation.
And in the opposite, she may continue to be unvirtuous and be like, no, I'm wallowing in this.
And that would not be right. And that appropriate.
And that goes back to what type of friend. Is this a friend of virtue?
Yeah.
You guys may remember from our earlier Aristotle episode that this is a type of friend. Aristotle, friends of pleasure, friends of utility, friends of virtue. And your friend of virtue is the person who is using this practical wisdom to say, like, hey, our friendship is strong enough that I'm going to show you this tough love. I am going to my goal today is to get you in the shower. Yeah. Because you need one.
Yeah.
Like, you stink.
Yeah.
I love you.
It's enough.
It's not a reflection of who you are as a person.
Right.
But
I'm here to help.
We're not here to let you be Diogenes on the streets.
Yes, exactly. And we're here to have you go take a shower with excellence. Which way is up or down, left or right?
We need to know immediately. But those kinds of value judgments, like, are really attuned to you having this practical wisdom of what is your relationship. Yeah. So there's a layer of that.
Yes.
What is the good or right thing to do in this situation?
Yeah.
What is going to lead my friend on an appropriate path?
Yeah.
And also what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what is the value of me being within this situation, or how can I be most virtuous?
Totally.
And sometimes that's to say nothing, but to be virtuous and to have access to your function as a virtuous person, and this practical wisdom is to be able to differentiate between those times.
Yeah, exactly. It's finding that kind of, appropriate middle ground between being in excess, right? Or being totally deficient.
Yep. And that is the big thing with Aristotle. He thinks everything has this golden mean. Everything has the what you are. Once you are a virtuous person, once you're the highest form of a virtuous person, you can kind of just sense, and your natural beings puts you in the correct or right way of being, and that's in the golden mean. That's in you're not in an area of deficiency, and you're not in an area of excess.
Yeah.
You're just right. We're the Goldilocks.
The Goldilocks.
Oh, Aristotle, Uncle Ari.
Uncle Ari.
So for applied, for you to do something with this, like, this is more of a question thought exercise for y'all this week. And you can even think about it while you're having a forest bath. If you haven't done your forest bath from the last episode, you can go out and sit in nature and think about this. But give yourself the opportunity to think about what is an excellence. Think about what are your own excellences. What can you positively say? Like, I do this. I spent time studying it. I spent time practicing it. And now when I do this thing, I know I am doing it properly.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I love about Hellenistic philosophy in this time period, they did not believe in modesty. Modesty was not virtuous to them. This is an idea that comes later as part of Christian teaching. Like, that's more of a theological thing that comes about later. At this time period, you weren't you could be a braggart, but to be modest is undermining your own virtuousness.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're seeking out, you shouldn't always be like, but I do it pretty good, but like you just won an Olympic gold medal and you're like, oh, like
I'm all right.
I'm okay. I'm just the best in the world.
Just the best in my craft.
I'm just the best in my craft in this planet, and you're like, okay.
But what else is out there? Do you know
We
what I
don't
mean?
know. We can't say what in the universe
We can't.
might be going on. So if you can think about, just give yourself that time to be like, hey, like I am always seeking to be a better person, but I can confidently say I'm good at these things.
Yeah.
Because it's okay to give yourself a little pat on the back.
Mm-hmm. Do it right now.
And be like, I'm so good at making toast.
I've just patted myself on the back. So has Danny. So I
I
hope
gave
you
myself
did too.
the double
pat.
Double pat.
You too. Pat yourself on the back right now.
Yeah.
From What We Gathered is brought to you with gratitude by Tyler Olson, our sound producer, editor, performance wrangler, Danny Nelson, co-host and producer, and me, co-host Kylie Shahar. A special thanks to Sam Fisher for our music, and thank you to those from whom we've gathered, our teachers, scholars, historians, lovers of wisdom, the internet, and of course, thank you, our listeners.